North Korea is threatening military action against the U.S. and South Korea. The threat comes days after the North conducted an underground nuclear test. South Korean media say the North has also test-fired 5 short-range missiles since the weekend.
They have chosen the path they're on, and I'm very pleased that we have a unified international community, including China and Russia, in setting forth a very specific condemnation of North Korea and then working with us for a firm resolution going forward.
Pyongyang called South Korea's decision to join an international program to intercept ships suspected of aiding nuclear proliferation tantamount to a declaration of war. State television said North Korea is able to conquer any targets in its vicinity or hit the U.S.
And we call on North Korea to refrain from these kinds of provocative statements. We call on them to uphold their commitments and abide by their international obligations.
The State Department spokesman says Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and other senior officials have been debating how to respond.
Everyone agreed that we had to send a strong, unified message to North Korea.
North Korea's latest belligerence comes as the UN Security Council debates how to punish the regime for Monday's nuclear bomb test.
Korea upped the ante again today in its increasingly belligerent gamble with the West. In case setting off a nuclear device wasn't menacing enough and then conducting multiple missile tests, now the reclusive nation is raising the specter of all-out war on the Korean peninsula and perhaps beyond. Neil McDonald reports.
North Korea's leadership took a moment today to address the world through a television newsreader, as usual. First, they called the leaders of South Korea traitors and threatened them with military strikes. Second, they said, the armistice with the South is dissolved and the Korean peninsula might return to a state of war. And third, they threatened to attack American and South Korean warships. Here's how a North Korean envoy to the UN put it.
What is important is to put an end to hostile policy. Hostile policy in particular of the United States and Japan.
All this because the rest of the world has denounced North Korea's underground nuclear tests and missile launches in the past few days. South Korea's president reacted by formally joining the international effort to curb Pyongyang's nuclear program. Japan vowed to intensify that effort. Even China, North Korea's greatest ally, denounced the test. The regime in Pyongyang replied by holding an official celebration, and there were reports it may be restarting its reactor here in Yongbyon. This North Korea watcher says Kim Jong-il may have no choice but to rely on nukes.
The soldiers are reported to be borderline malnourished. It's a chronic issue. Equipment is rusty, whatnot. Nuclear weapons enables them to have the capability in almost a cost-saving way compared to feeding and manning and improving and modernizing the conventional forces.
Today, the U.S. Secretary of State had tough words for Pyongyang.
It continues to act in a provocative and belligerent manner toward its neighbors. There are consequences to such actions.
But American talk of consequences and punishment has so far been hollow. North Korea is already heavily sanctioned, and it does, after all, have the bomb. So the UN Security Council is reportedly once again discussing the idea of going after the personal offshore bank accounts of Pyongyang's elite.
In fact, the North now says the 1953 armistice that effectively ended the Korean War is null and void, as Fox reports tonight. The North has made threats like this before. The question is whether this time they're serious. They're upset, apparently, because South Korea joined an international effort to stop nuclear proliferation. That's a hot topic these days, considering North Korea's nuclear test this week. And North Korea is calling the South's move a declaration of war.
It continues to act in a provocative and belligerent manner toward its neighbors. There are consequences to such actions.
Consequences that perhaps could become more severe as North Korea issues a brand new threat against the United States. The Fox Report's chief correspondent, Jonathan Hunt, with us now. Can you explain how we got where we are?
Yeah, this is all part of North Korea's ongoing challenge to the United States and the world. This chapter began Monday with that underground nuclear test. Also on Monday, the North Koreans fired a couple of short-range missiles. Then on Tuesday, they fired 3 more of those missiles. Then today, Wednesday, we had this statement that the truce was over, and we also had these first reports that the nuclear plant may have been restarted, Shep.
All right, what about this threat to the United States?
This is a direct threat to United States ships taking part in what is called the Proliferation Security Initiative, an international effort to stop materials that could be used to make nuclear weapons getting to North Korea. North Korea says it will attack U.S. ships that interfere with its ships. It says it will deliver a decisive and merciless blow.
Now, sources have told us there's activity around the North's nuclear plant, and now there are some indications we're led to believe that it may be en route at least to restarting the thing. That is very serious.
That is very serious indeed. We're talking about the Yongbyon nuclear plant. Now, sources are saying that they have seen steam coming from that plant. That could mean they are restarting the nuclear plant, a plant that can make weapons-grade plutonium. Those sources also cautioned, though, that it would take up to a year to get that plant restarted. But if they do it, and if they learn how to put a nuclear warhead on a short-range or even worse, a long-range missile, then everything changes for the world.